All right, so thanks again, Vishal. So we are going to talk about SmartList Builder. The various areas that we'll be touching would be creating and maintaining SmartList. We'll be also reviewing and displaying some options that you can use to set up SmartList fields. We are going to create some links from SmartList back to GP. We're going to do some restrictions. We're going to add those restrictions as well as calculated fields to our SmartList. And we're going to create a SmartList to display the summarized data in Dynamics GP. Now, if we were to open our SmartList, we would see that we have a lot of out-of-the-box reports. All right, these out-of-the-box reports come standard with the GP. However, if you still want some type of report, say that needs manipulation, you probably need multiple databases or sometimes SQL views, SmartList Builder would allow you to build your own reports, and it basically goes through a wizard approach. So what we are going to do is create this SmartList Builder report. You do not need any sort of programming or coding skills to create this report because of the wizard-like feature that makes it easy for end users to do so. All right. One thing I would like to note, however, it would be helpful if you do have a basic understanding of what data you want to pull into your report and how you want your data to look. So to create a SmartList Builder report, firstly, we're going to give access to users that does not have access to a SmartList Builder report. By default, all power users will have access. However, SmartList Builder reports are not accessible to everyone. So if you do not have the power user role, then you would need a security task assigned to you to be able to view these reports. So I'm going to just show you guys how this is going to be done. Firstly, you go to Microsoft Dynamics, then you go to Tools, then we'll go to System, and then we're going to go to Security Task. All right, so here we're going to set up those users that needs access to the SmartList Builder screens. So under the task area, we're going to give our task a name, and we're going to call it SmartList Builder. All right, our description and our task name, we would call it SmartList Builder User. Right, and same goes for the description. Right, now here you would see on the product all the forms, windows, and screens that you would need to give your user access to. And we are going to give our user access to SmartList Builder. So under our type, it would be the SmartList Builder permissions. And our series will be the SmartList objects. Right, our category would be where we would like to save the product under. So here you would see all the forms and reports and windows and screens that you would need in order for them to have access to SmartList Builder. Once you select the various areas you would save the task. Once the task is saved, now you would need to assign a role. The tool setup system security roles. You can give your security role a name. Right? And then we would look for the task that we created. Once we assign the task to the role, we can save it. And now we can assign the role to a user. So under our users, under user security, you can now select a user. So for example, John Doe. All right, and you can look for that SmartList builder role and assign permissions to that user. So this is how you go about adding SmartList builder permissions for a user that is not a power user. So now we're going to go to SmartList Builder, Microsoft Dynamics GP, Tools, SmartList Builder, SmartList Builder. We're going to create a SmartList using multiple tables. So firstly, what we're going to do is pull in our vendor transactions because we want to create a vendor listing report of all our vendors. So our SmartList ID, we're going to give it a name again, and I'm going to call it all vendors transactions. Here we're going to pull in all our paid transactions. So I'm going to call it paid transactions under the SmartList name. All right, so here is basically where you're going to have another name to describe the actual name that you're going to see on the report. So whatever you have in this area here, once you go into SmartList, you're going to be able to identify your SmartList report by the SmartList name. And then we have our item name. And under our item name, we're going to give it a user-friendly name as well, although the item name is not going to be displayed on the report, but it's also important when creating your SmartList Builder report. All right, our product would be Microsoft Dynamics GP, and the series that we're going to save this report in would be our purchasing series. All right, so once we save this report, it's going to be placed under the purchasing series. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my GP table and grab that payables table that has all our paid transaction history files. So the first thing that we need to do is click on this add table option. And then we're going to go to Microsoft Dynamics GP table. All right, here we're going to click on the drop down and we're going to bring in our history table. history. Nothing to see it. 1 second. Okay, I don't seem to be able to locate my table. Okay, so let's use let's see what this has under it. All right, this wasn't the original table that I wanted to pull in, but we can use this table. So we can pull in our address master table. And this table has all our address fields. But I'm also looking for my master file. Let's see. Okay, so for some reason my table has been removed. Let me just make a quick change to my database. Could you give me guys 1 second? All right, guys, sorry about that. So I made the change to my database to import my tables that was missing. So let's go back and add that PMP transaction file. Sorry about that again. All right, so once we bring in our PM paid transaction file, you're going to see a list of columns here. One with your field name, one with your display name, one that shows the display of all the fields that are selected. However, these doesn't actually show the fields that would be displayed in the report. The fields that are actually going to be displayed in the report is the ones that are under default. So if we are going to choose, say, voucher number, sorry, to document amount, by selecting these fields under default, these would be added to your SmartList. If you want additional fields added, you can do so. For example, your 1099, these are also going to be added as well. So now, as you can see, we don't have that vendor name listed. We only have the vendor ID, but we don't have the vendor name. Sorry about that again, guys. The call was coming through. All right, so we only have the vendor ID. We don't have the vendor name. So what I would like to do is to add the vendor name to my report. So I can have a second table that allows me to grab that vendor name and place it within the same view. So I'm going to add my vendor master table. All right, and I'm going to add this to my report to establish a relationship between the both tables. We have to set a link between our transaction history file to our vendor master file by using ID. So here we're going to use a left outer and we're going to add a link between our PM paid transaction history file using vendor ID and our master file using vendor ID. All right, so now we have our linked fields. Once we have our linked fields, we can now save. All right, so this automatically creates the link between our vendor master file and our PM paid transaction history file. And now we are able to bring our vendor name within our view. So within our first set of tables, we pulled in these fields and then we joined it to our PM master file where we can now add our vendor name. So once we have done this, we can save our SmartList Builder report. We can go to SmartList, and here we can see our paid transactions, right? So we added these fields and we added our vendor name at the end to complete our report. Now, say for instance, we want to go back into SmartList Builder to change the way names are displayed on our column headings. We are able to do so. SmartList Builder allows that, where you can go to SmartList Builder. Let's bring up the report. And for instance, if you want to change document date to doc date, document number to doc number, all right, and bring up our SmartList. Our column headings are now changed. All right, so you do have the flexibility of creating your report based on what fields you want added to the report, as well as what you want your headings to look like. All right, so when you go to SmartList and you make these changes and you refresh these objects, you are going to see it displayed here. Now, what if we want to see the column that I've chosen? Say you want to display the column headings in a different manner. So you have the columns area here, and you could bring up vendor name. Do you want vendor name to show first, or you want vendor name to show after the vendor ID? All right, so we could have the report looking a little bit more uniformed. Now on our report, we have document type. However, this document type doesn't mean anything to us because they are all integers. All right, so in SmartList Builder, we are able to change the document type to something that is more meaningful to us. So let's change that in SmartList Builder. I'm also going to show you how to place some restrictions on your SmartList Builder report. So for example, we could place a restriction on our document date. Instead of displaying all these dates, we can restrict it to a particular year. And all of these would be done within SmartList Builder. So under SmartList Builder, we can add restrictions. All right, so I want to add my restrictions to my paid transaction history file. So here we can select the table that we want to add the restriction to. Then we are going to choose the field that we want to add the restriction to, and we can use document date, and we can restrict those dates, and then we can choose any one of these restrictions. We can say that the date could be greater or equal to, can be in between. So we're going to choose is between, and we're going to choose from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, right? And that is our restrictions for our date. You can also apply the restrictions to all users. You could apply it to a selected amount of users or a selected amount of classes. Here we're going to apply the restrictions to all users. And we're going to select OK. I also want to ensure that I have all my invoices types only. So for my document type, where we notice that they were all integers, like I said, we wanted to have a meaningful name. So we know in GP, the document type references a various amounts of information, whether it's an invoice, whether it's a miscellaneous charge, whether it's a payment or a credit memo, or even finance charges. We all have these document types in SmartList. And for my document types, I only want to pull certain document types, not all of them. So let's do that. So if we click on our PM master file, here we can see that we can list the numbers of descriptions. We can actually click on copy if we don't want to manually do it. And we can select our document type. Okay, so our document type currently does not have any listings here. If they were listed here, we could have selected them and copied it over. But seeing that it's not listed here, we can manually enter it. So we can say 1 with reference invoice. All right. So wherever there's 1 in the system, we can reference our invoices. So let's save this. We can actually add a couple more in there. Let's see firstly what's being referenced. Right, so where we saved for type 1, we can see all our document type 1 are now invoices. Right, so we have type 1 and we also have type 6. All right, so we could change type 6 So whether it's a credit memo or if it's a finance charge, based on what the document type means. And this can be found out in SQL in the backend in the GP tables. You can actually go in and check to see what these document type mean. And then you can change them within SmartList Builder for it to reflect on the front end. So that way it's meaningful to the user who is reviewing the report. All right. So also, we can also look at the document date. So our change that was made to the document date, it now displays only the current year based on our restriction to our date. So it's only being viewed for the year 2027, and that's the year that's coded on my Fabricam GP application 2027. So that's the year it's pulling for my current year. All right. So we are able to change the document type and have restrictions on our document date. And we saw that we could do that in SmartList Builder. So say, for example, you want to see an amount with a positive amount. So for example, an invoice should have a positive amount, and then a credit memo, we want to see a negative change displayed. You could actually go into SmartList Builder and change your display options. And you can also do calculated fields and add it into your SmartList. So for the document amount that we changed and that we created into our report, we could actually change whether we want to see it as a positive or a negative transaction. All right, so our debit transactions, such as invoices, miscellaneous charges, the finance charges, those should be showing us positive amounts. If we have any credit transactions, those can be shown as a debit amount. So in SmartList Builder, all right, you can highlight your document amount. All right, you can click on the blue arrow here. And by clicking on this blue arrow, next to the display name, you can see that this is the field that you have chosen. On the display, you can either allow it to show a currency symbol, show a percentage symbol, show 1,000 separator, an index note. Under decimal, you can have a certain amount of place values for your document amount. And also, you can modify those numbers, those decimal numbers. If you choose, right, you have up to 5 decimal places that you can place on your report for your document amount. And then under negative values, you are able to designate whether it's a credit transaction to show up as a negative value. So while, like I said, while invoices is a debit transaction and that's a positive value, you may want your returns or your credit memos to show up as negative values. And to do so, you would click on display as negative based on field. Right, once you select this, it's going to give you some table options here. All right, and this would be for your PM transaction file table, and it would be your documents, sorry. All right, it will be your document type. All right, and it will be for, well, in this case, as we're just testing for invoices, let's save. All right, and as you can see, for our invoices that we changed, we have made it into a negative value. All right, so the last thing that we want to do is pull in our calculated field. And to pull in the calculated field, this is going to be done under SmartList Builder again. And say, for example, for your vendor information, you want to concatenate addresses. Because for my history file, we do not currently have any address fields here. However, we do have address fields in our master file. So we can pull those together to display on our report, and that is done via a calculation. So under our calculations option, you can click on we can add a calculation and then we can give it a name. Full vendor address. All right, because we're dealing with addresses, our field type would be string. You have various field type, but it's integers, currency, dates, etc. All right. And under our PM master file, we have address 1, and then we can concatenate that with a space, and then we could bring in address 2. We can concatenate that again with a space, the double quotes representing a space between each concatenation, and address 3. Right, so we can bring in all these addresses. If you want, you can also concatenate the city onto your address. Right, you can validate to ensure that there aren't any errors. It's currently stating that it is valid. So let's click OK. All right, and let's save. So now we have our field name, which is our full address that we concatenated. All right, address 1 to 3, as well as we added the city. And our field type is string. So once we have our calculated field and we save our SmartList Builder, right, we could actually give it, we could actually view it from here, and we want our calculated field to display on our report. So remember, under default, we need to select the fields that we would like to display. So we would like our calculated field to display. Let's save that, and let's go back into SmartList. All right, it's saying that it detected some changes and it wants to make the changes. It's going to build that out. And under our paid transactions, we now have our full address. All right, so we have our calculated field that we created to concatenate addresses 1 to 3, as well as any city information, and we pull that into one string or one field. All right. So we went through how to do restrictions, how to edit a field and edit integers based on a specific field name. And we also looked at how to create a calculation based on various fields and to pull that into our report. All right. So guys, that is the end of my presentation. I know I had a little bit of hiccups, but thanks for bearing with me, guys. If you guys have any questions, you can type it in the Q&A chat and I would be able to answer them for you. So I will give you guys a few minutes if anyone has any questions that regards answering. All right, so without further ado, if it is you do have any other queries or concerns after the end of this presentation, you can send your emails to operations@optimus.guru and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you very much.